From east to west, heroes are sent, seeking glory in the greatest of events. There are knights on noble steeds, those who will bring them to their knees. There are monsters to test their mettle at every turn. Legends will rise based on their merits. There's even pirates riding parrots.
One game that a lot of people can't seem to talk enough about is Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft. And it's a game that's ever evolving, ever changing. A lot of new things coming up on the horizon here with the game. You revealed some here at Gamescom, but you've been starting to talk about the Grand Tournament and what that expansion brings. So if we start with that, sort of that expansion, what are you trying to sort of, how do you want to reshape the game, and what were the sort of the overarching objectives in creating this?
Sure. I think it's always exciting with a big expansion like this to bring in just a big chunk of new content, and that's both kind of card content, but also like the really fun lore from Warcraft that we're bringing in, mixing up kind of the meta, so just really changing things up quite a bit.
Yeah, I really like when people experiment with new ideas, with new decks, and even to like revamp old decks because we've released like another mech or another Murloc or something like that. Going back to those decks and trying them out, that's the most important thing with each expansion. Give people stuff to experiment with and have fun and to explore.
And you revealed Jousting here at the show. Can you tell us a little bit how that works?
Sure. So a number of cards have this jousting mechanic, and the way it works is that when a card jousts, both players reveal a random minion from the deck, and if yours has a higher casting cost than your opponent's, then something really cool happens for you. So, you know, one example is we have a card called Master Jouster, and he has the joust as his battle cry. So when he comes into play, this thing happens. You both reveal a random minion. If yours has a higher casting cost, then he gets Taunt and Divine Shield, which is really powerful for his cost. So it's really fun. There's a lot of ways we can use it, and it's cool because it encourages a different kind of deck building. It encourages you putting these larger, more expensive minions in your deck, and I think that's a really fun thing for players to play with.
Yeah, and I can imagine that there's that that appeal also of someone who's heavily invested in jousting faces someone who's not really taking that into account. It can create for some very interesting scenarios and
For sure. I mean, I think, and by interesting, I think you mean for the guy who made the jousting deck amazing, because you're going to win every joust and just crush the other guy. And that's really fun to be part of making that deck. And also, I think it makes it interesting for everybody else in the meta, because now you got to watch out for the deck.
And how would you say that you would counter that? Would you create sort of an offensive jousting deck yourselves, or are there ways to counter that wouldn't necessarily invoke that mechanic?
Yeah, it's really cool to see the meta change. So if there's a lot of decks that have very cheap minions, then the jousting decks will appear to counter them, and the jousting decks will naturally be really good against them, and they're sometimes really popular, like the Hunter Rush or Warlock Rush decks. And then if those jousting decks get popular, then the control decks with like expensive dragons or something else, like really expensive control minions, will show up to counter the jousting decks, and that's sort of a loop, because then it goes full circle again, and that's a really healthy part of any card game, to have that metagame loop.
What are your opinions on the sort of the competitive scene these days and what's going on there?
I think it's really fun. That's been one of the things that's been most interesting for us to watch unfold. You know, we weren't sure, I think, at the beginning what this scene would be like. There's really kind of nothing else like it out there. But I think it's really great. We have some great personalities that really show off how skill-intensive the game is. I think the game is really fun for people to watch, both these competitions and these people streaming. So I think it's been a great part of the game and the game community.
This is a surprise. Is it something that sort of has made its way into the design phase as well? Are you looking at this? Is it influencing how you're sort of progressing the game in the future?
Yeah, definitely influences in kind of subtle ways. We really like that the community has such good, strong personalities, and it's interesting to watch these characters and evolve. but it also influences in like what is fun to watch. For example, we tried to, when we were designing Piloted Shredder, we had to decide exactly how strong to make it. And when we have moments of everybody watching the video of a tournament or something, and everyone's waiting with bated breath to see what comes out of that shredder, that moment is a very exciting moment for thousands of people. Yeah. So we decided that cards like Piloted Shredder are actually good for the game. You know, that excitement, you don't get that kind of excitement watching like a game that has no randomness at all. So we embrace it. And at the same time, we also decided that we like randomness cards that give you some guaranteed value. For the Piloted Shredder, you always get the 4/3, and you know that usually you're going to get a 2/2, and that is what we consider a very healthy type of randomness.
Because that is sort of a sensitive issue, because some people really dislike any sort of randomness in the game, while others sort of embrace it and sort of enjoy that sort of that chaos that it creates.
Yeah, I think, you know, that luck factor is a really important part of Hearthstone. It's kind of very integral to the game. And I think it does a number of really important things for us. It's very exciting. These moments that Mike was talking about are just very exciting. I think there's smaller examples of that where it makes, we have this phrase called delightful surprise, but it just makes for nice little surprises all the time for players. And also it actually increases the skill cap in a lot of ways because it presents players with very different scenarios, ones that maybe they couldn't predict. And very complicated scenarios. So if you have a bunch of minions out and you have a knife juggler, like which guy that knife hits really changes how you need to do the next thing. And trying to calculate all those possibilities can be very complicated. So I think it serves an important purpose there too with how it interacts with the very highest levels of play. So I think across the board, it does some really important stuff for the game and makes it a really fun and interesting game.
All right, so if I know it's difficult to pick favorites, but if you have any favorite cards that are coming out with the Grand Tournament that you'd like to highlight that are not secret still, but if you have one each perhaps or a couple.
Yeah, I have a couple. I'll tell you one. One of them, my favorites, is Lock and Load. Lock and Load does this crazy thing where you have this crazy combo that can go off. It's 2 mana. Whenever you play a spell, gain a random hunter card. So you can just be like boom, 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 Hunter's Mark, you know, Explosive Trap, and just get a bunch of spells. And sometimes you'll get more spells off of it. Sometimes you'll get minions. So there's some randomness there, but it's been a super fun to play. Since I told you one that has been revealed, I'm also going to tell you another one. The one that Crip reveals next privately on his stream is one of my other favorites, and you'll have to see that in the future.
Well, that's a teaser. How about you?
Mine is probably Tuskar Jouster, and I don't know if you were there, but I made a joke about that during the press event earlier today that I love the card because it was a walrus riding a turtle. But I wasn't kidding. I love that card because it's a walrus riding a turtle. And I'm the kind of player who will play it because of that. And so
never mind the stats, right?
Never mind the stats. The walrus riding the turtle, is more important than any of that stuff. So I'm really looking forward to playing with him.
And if we could touch on the sort of how you're bringing in more of the Warcraft lore into the game and how you plan on doing that.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons we're in that world to begin with. It's such a rich world, not just World of Warcraft, but all the way back to Warcraft 1, 2, and 3. It's been a lot of fun, like, delving into those and, like, what are the great characters and places and events that we're very fond of. So with the Grand Tournament, we kind of have... I really love where we are with that because it's kind of a spin on Argent Tournament. I don't know if you played World of Warcraft, but that's other tournament that was kind of like this, only much darker and scarier. So we kind of took it and turned it on its head, and it's a very, very fun, light thing. We still get to bring in all these great characters and monsters that we like. So we're kind of always thinking through the Warcraft lore and what's our interpretation of it.
Yeah, sure. In addition to adding our own sort of spin on it, we also think that, like, as we move forward, we can make more cards that are from Hearthstone. In the past, we made a card named Snowchugger, which was not in the Warcraft universe, but it felt like it could be in the Warcraft universe. And that's the kind of thing that we could explore even more going forward. People loved Snowchugger. The World of Warcraft team called us up and said, hey, we're going to put this guy in the game. And we're like, awesome. It goes both ways now. So as Hearthstone grows as a game, we're going to keep doing more of that.
Very exciting. Of course, you can read up more on Hearthstone and the upcoming Grand Tournament. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It's been great meeting you.
Great meeting you. Thanks.
It's the Grand Tournament.